Okay, Police Committee. Perry?
I'm going to start with the second item and defer to the mayor on the first. The chief proposed that the council consider. The chief proposed that the council consider both increasing, or probably more accurately making more available parking permits for parking in the municipal parking lots, and also adjusting by way of an increase the fee for the parking permits. We discussed this at work session in connection with another proposal involving resident parking on Court Street, and really referred the matter to the long-term parking committee. However, the chief raised an additional concern. I think the mayor and I may have spoken about it briefly, that he's got to do something about the parking permits, and renewals for 2011 will be sought starting in December. So he asked that council consider changing the parking permit allocation and fee. Currently, in order to apply for a municipal parking permit, the applicant has to show some necessity. They seem to be given mostly to people who have businesses that don't have off-street parking, correct? And the chief's suggestion is really, I think I characterize it as more market-oriented. We'll increase the price. We'll set a limit. He suggested 75 permits, and open it up to all comers. So the suggestion, I don't know, a couple of prices were bandied about, but $120 a year would be $10 per month, basically 50 cents per weekday, to park in the municipal lot for periods longer than the 2 or 3 hour allotted time. It's currently $90, and the chief's suggestion was that 75 permits be so allocated. He also provided a notation that in 2010 there were 49 permits sold, in 2009 31, and in 2008 63. So by capping the allocation at 75, there's some room for permits beyond those that have actually been issued. So I really put that out there for consideration and discussion, both as to whether we should do it, what the allocated number should be, and what the fee should be.
As I understand it, the chief's thinking was that there were some businesses that would like to be able to buy permits, but under the old description were unable to, and then people who could buy them weren't. So it made more sense to say, okay, this is how many permits we're going to sell, first come, first serve, and this is what they're going to cost, and that should be a better way of distributing them. So if you have businesses that come into town that might not have met the original criteria for being permitted to buy them, would buy them, and by capping the number of permits that were available, we'd still be making sure that we had enough parking for people who just need to park for a couple hours. Yeah. Okay. So is there any discussion regarding this?
I guess the one question I have is, have we reached out to the business community to find out if this is something that they're going to, I know we talked about putting, I guess, hourly parking off the back roads, Court Street and other streets, to drive the businesses to hopefully utilize these permits and go to the municipal lots. But if we actually talked to them and found out that this is what's going to happen, we just talked about economic times and things are tough, where we get, we have something like Witchell who has several employees, asking them to foot the bill. Is it something that they're going to be willing to do, or possibly have we looked at the option of giving Court Street and Penn Street and those streets that are affected by businesses? And I understand that residential parking permits for no fee, but they actually live there, they get that permit.
Right.
And then that would drive the business cars to the parking lots.
That's a proposal that's
exactly it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what we're
That
going to
the
do.
residential permits would be
Rather
at no
than-
fee
Yeah.
for the residents, yeah.
Yeah.
The cost of the permit is far less than the cost of the parking ticket. So, so I think that it's not as far as a burden of someone who could buy a parking permit as opposed to parking illegally all day on a street and having ticket after ticket, would probably find this a bargain. But it sounds like the parking permits haven't been utilized to the extent they should be. Am I correct? Because they just...
Well, I don't know to what degree they're actually being
Yeah.
utilized, but they're not being purchased.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
purchased, yeah.
It seems to me that the two proposals together are a good combination. On the one hand, the residents have made clear that they'd like relief from the taking up of spots on Court at the minimum, and probably Penn and Center as well. So if we do resident permit parking only, and then the 2-hour for everybody else, that's going to take the employees, it seems to me, we talked about this at work session, who would otherwise just take the tickets, and if the tickets are expensive enough under the new restrictions on Court, Penn, and Center, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that it's more economical to get a parking permit. So I think you're right, John, it's market-driven.
Well, I guess my question is, right now, we don't have the situation because there's no signs on Penn or Court that would have the tickets issued. But if we're now asking the business owners to pay that $90 a year individually for every employee, have we gone to them and said, what is something we can work out, or have we even discussed it with them? I don't know, that may hamper business in the community as well. I understand we want to balance it with the parking and the residents who live on those streets, but what about the businesses? Are we just saying, well, we're going to drive it and make them pay it because that's what we're going to do?
Well, I don't think we're making them pay it. It's more...
Well, what are their options to park?
Offering permits to businesses and residents who may not otherwise have been offered those permits, giving them an opportunity to purchase the permits. But it's a fair concern that if the two issues aren't severable, then maybe we're not in a position to make a decision tonight on the permit allocation and fees, because at least the issue as to the Court Street parking is to be taken up by the long-term parking committee, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I think that this is really just we have to check here, but just a change in the rate fees, right?
Yeah, this is, yeah,
And
I
then what
think
fees? What
these
was
two issues came up similarly,
separate
but they're
things.
separate issues.
Yeah.
The issue of parking permit, the residential permit on Court Street and the streets that go off from it are to enable residents to park in front of their homes. Residents who don't have any off-street parking can't park in front of their homes during the day because all these employees are parking up. And so the idea of giving a residential permit for those streets is a totally separate issue from the fact that businesses are buying parking permits for the lot to enable them to park full day without getting a ticket. And the question is, should those parking permits be, the first question is, how many parking permits do we want to be able to sell for the borough lot? And those are not people who could park on the street with that permit. These are to park in the borough lot. So how many permits could we sell? And it sounds like the chief has decided 75 was a reasonable total number, capped number of permits to sell. Right now, if you have to occupy a certain business space to be allowed to buy a permit, and he thought that that was probably not the best way to go anymore because businesses have been approaching him for permits, but they may not be able to get one because they have off-street parking. So it would be great if a business that under the old definition couldn't buy one would be able to buy one now. I mean, that certainly makes perfect sense. So that's the first question. Do we want to open up the permits to anybody who wants to buy one, first come, first serve, and the maximum being 75? The second question is $90, which is what's being charged right now, a reasonable rate, or should we be raising that? The numbers got tossed around. I was aware originally of 100, and now it seems like 120 was discussed at work session.